Welcome to the Resilient Underdog Podcast, where we celebrate the gritty determination and unbreakable spirit of those who overcame adversity and rose to the top. Each episode, we will bring you inspiring stories of individuals who refused to give up despite the odds stacked against them. They faced challenges head-on and emerged victorious, proving that with hard work and a never-say-die attitude, anything is possible. So buckle up. Get ready to be motivated and join us on a journey to unleash your inner resilient underdog.
Today we have a very special guest from Spokane, Washington. His name is Rick Clark. If you're from Spokane, you probably know his name. He has been around. He's done some great things, but he's also seen some real parts of life. So I really wanted to bring him on today and share his story with all of you. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Rick. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm great.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you today because, I know a little bit about your story, but I'm really excited to really dig in deep and find out who Rick Clark is and where he comes from and how he got this heart to serve the community that he blesses Spokane with currently. And I can't speak for Rick, but my hunch is he has aspirations to expand outside of Spokane, make a bigger impact wherever he can, and help people that have walked some of the same paths in life as him, but anybody that's dealing with a massive struggle, he wants to probably be a positive influence on. Would you say that's correct, Rick?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody, let me tell you a little bit about Rick, and you are going to be blown away by this man. So here's a little bit of Rick's background and a little bit of his accolades, and then we're going to kind of dive into some questions and really learn about Rick and what makes Rick tick. So here we go. Rick is a Spokane native. He was born and raised in Spokane, Washington. However, just like many of us listening to this podcast, he was not born into the upper echelon class of Spokane or any city. As a matter of fact, he was born into the extreme opposite, on the wrong side of the track, so to speak. He was born into extreme poverty. Rick was a high school dropout. I know you probably won't be able to tell that as we get going because he's so well articulated and well spoken. Rick struggled for the next 28 years after dropping out of high school with homelessness, poverty, and I believe addiction issues. Would you say that's correct?
Addiction in my family for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I come from addictive families as well, so I can relate to that. Rick eventually decided enough is enough and took action and threw a Hail Mary pass, as he says, and decided to take a bus, head over to Spokane Community College and see about taking some classes to improve his life. Now, that was not your everyday bus ride. This is where Rick found his life's passion, and it was born with a nonprofit he now owns and hosts called Giving Back Packs, which is great. But now, over the years that he's been doing this since 2015, he's given over 7,000 backpacks to serve the community. He has revolutionized how Spokane gives to those in need, which is no easy task. While he was doing all of this, because you imagine that's quite the feat, while he was doing all this, he graduated from Spokane Community College with honors and earned his bachelor's degree from the very prestigious Gonzaga University in 2019. Welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to get into this.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so I got some questions for you. You ready?
Yep.
And I'm excited to see what comes out. First question is, Rick, can you paint a picture for the listeners and myself what early life looked like and what kind of environment you were born into and experienced growing up? I just want to really paint the picture so people can realize that they're not the only ones, maybe.
Yeah, no, in fact, I try to tell people all the time, my story isn't all that unique. There's a lot of people that lived a life just like me. There's a lot of people currently struggling just like I was. So I don't ever want to come across like I've got this unique, amazing story. But I was born, my mom and dad got a divorce when I was 1, and my dad left our family and never returned. And so like a lot of men out there, I didn't have a father. I was raised by my mom and my grandma and my 2 sisters. So I like to joke, I can't work on cars. I don't know anything about guns, but I can braid hair better than any man that I know.
Hey, that's a talent.
Yeah, so it was really a unique way to be raised, and a blessing, really. My mom and my grandma instilled some really awesome values in me, but my mom had to get on welfare because back then, without an education, my mom didn't have an education. She had to get on welfare. She tried to do what the world was screaming at her to do, which is work for everything that you get. And so she would go out and get a minimum wage graveyard shift job, leaving all of us kids at home, me and my two sisters, and we were rowdy, and we got her in so much trouble at so many jobs. And honestly, back then, when you stayed home, if you counted up your benefits of your food stamps and your check and your medical insurance and everything that the state would give you, it was worth that was more money than it was to go work full time at minimum wage. So for many years, I resented my mom for me always being on welfare. But the older I got, I started to realize how hard that must have been for her to try to take care of three kids and try to work when she could. And it just never worked out. So it was better for her to stay home. And what that led to was just 20 years, you basically, of just food stamps, and running out of our food stamps halfway through the month. So every single month of my childhood, I remember starving the last 2 weeks. And so I felt different than the other kids in my class. I knew that I was just as smart as them. I was just as creative, just as athletic as them. I just didn't have any money, so I couldn't do the things that they got to go do. And so while they were off doing sports and going to camp and stuff like that, I was learning how to dumpster dive and how to go to Frito-Lay at midnight and dive into their dumpster and bring home hefty bags full of chips, which isn't healthy.
Yeah, but it's something.
And so it just led to me feeling like I was not worthy. These are the chips that were dealt to me, so I had to kind of suck it up and make it up as I went, because I didn't have a father figure to tell me how this world really works. And so by the time I was 17, I walked out of East Valley High School and I never looked back. And back then they didn't care. They wouldn't check on you to see why you didn't come back to school. And I was great. I was good with that. Just leave me alone. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to work and be a man. And so I got some minimum wage jobs. I got my girlfriend pregnant. We got married. Didn't know each other. That cycle of poverty started all over again. And so that's kind of, and it's like a lot of people have that same story. So that's not, I think the part that's interesting about my story is way later in life, how I was able to turn it around in a pretty fast time frame. And that's the part that people like to talk about, just because I really thought I was doomed for the rest of my life, man. I was trapped.
It's so funny. That's how we feel. Like, when we're up against some adversities and we haven't learned how to handle it and we don't have any positive guides, a common thread amongst the mindsets of so many people out there, even currently, but especially back in like the 80s and things like that, that era. Like the 80s was just a different era. Like I'm an 80s baby, right? So I was running wild and doing all kinds of crazy stuff when I was a young boy as well. Same story a little bit, is like my mom was on welfare. She couldn't work, mental health issues, dad split. She had me and my two sisters. And food stamps and hunger and physical abuse. And you were right. Back then is like, just suck it up. Right. But you didn't have a positive influence, and you just like, well, this is my life, I guess.
And a lot of people don't understand that when you're submersed in poverty, all that other stuff comes out of poverty. So drug and alcohol addiction, mental health insecurities, no education, lack of jobs, homelessness, all that stuff came from being poor. And so it's not one or the other. Like, you don't just grow up and become this or that. Like, a lot of times it's your surroundings. And so I got a taste of all of it, man. I got a front row seat to all the bad stuff for decades, 4 decades before finally.
Decades.
Yeah, dude. I've never been suicidal ever, but when I was 44, I was so tired of this that I thought, you know what, maybe I did my best and maybe the world doesn't need me anymore. I get choked up thinking about it, just because I was so close to just throwing in the towel and I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just thought, man, I don't want my legacy for my kids to be that my dad, he constantly struggled. When they were little, they thought I was Superman. Even if I was getting a motel to have them for visits because I was homeless, they got to swim in the pool at the motel. They got to jump on the bed. Some of their fondest memories are some of the crappiest places we ever stayed, but they were kids and they thought I was Superman. Well, as I got older, as I got into my 40s, my kids were becoming young adults, and I could tell that they knew something was wrong, and that crushed my soul.
Right.
That's when some big changes happened.
And it's funny. I know I have so many friends, including myself, that say, my kids saved my life. They changed my life and they saved my life. These are friends that have gone to some dark places through addiction, through bad life choices, prison, jail, just living a completely dysfunctional, self-sabotaging life. And then their kids came into the world, and that's the thing that helped them start turning this boat around. Like I know for my daughter, right? I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I say I'm building the empire for my daughter.
Yep.
I have a saying that goes like this, is like, every generational curse in my family ends with me. Every generational blessing of abundance and the legacy starts with her. Do you kind of share that same mindset and when your kids came into the world?
Yeah, and I really didn't know how I was going to be able to be better than my dad. I mean, I knew that it wouldn't take much effort because he was just not there. But sometimes I think, like, man, now knowing what I know, if I could go back to that 18-year-old self, I would have put a white flag up and just said, "Hey, everybody, I know that I'm officially a man, but I don't know what I'm doing. I need some help, But I was embarrassed to do that as a man, as a young man. I was like, no, I can't do that. I'm going to push through. I'm going to make I'm going to blaze my own trail. And I'd listened to other people who'd been successful. And I was like, I'm just going to, because I saw it on movies, I was just going to do it. Well, 30 years of dead end jobs. It was exhausting, and I almost died because of it. So it was like, it wasn't that easy to just snap out of it,
Yeah, it's definitely not just a change your mind and get it done. It takes a lot of self-development, personal development, sacrifice, willingness to go through very ugly, hard journey of changing your mindset, number one, and actually creating new habits and disciplines and a new identity. So when you were, a high school dropout and homeless, how did you feel as a man? Did you feel like a man?
Oh, I just felt terrible. And my mom and grandma adored me. So they would just reassure me that I was special. And I would get angry at them. Like, what are you talking about? I just lost my phone. My lights got shut off. I'm squatting in the trailer that I've only lived in for 3 months. And you're going to tell me I'm special? What's special about that? And so they passed away before my comeback. And I really wish, and I hope that they can see what transpired, because they lived their lives in struggle and poverty as well. And so now my kids are all in classes at community college. My son got his master's degree. So we literally are, like you said, we flipped the script and we changed everything. And I thought it would take generations to do that, but it literally took about 5 years, Yeah.
It took the one. You were the one. You were the one that said,
I didn't understand. I didn't understand that was what I was doing. I was just trying to survive.
Right. Well, surviving turned to thriving, right? So kind of describe your life as of homelessness. Can you tell us what that, because, what that feels like and looks like, because so many people out here in our community, they see this huge problem, right, of homelessness and addiction. And it's just like, there's a mess everywhere. And it's so easy. And I understand their perspective of F them. They're lost. They're hopeless. Let them fend for themselves. So let's paint the picture for people of someone who's actually been there. I've never been homeless, but I have a huge heart for them.
Right.
What does it feel like to be in such a state of despair where you're homeless, you don't have anything, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you don't value yourself, you don't love yourself, you're just completely lost? Can you kind of describe that experience for the listeners?
Yeah. I mean, I remember the strongest memory is thinking that everyone I came in contact with knew everything bad about me. So even a stranger walking by on the street, I felt like they could see right through me and see all the terrible choices I made. They could see that I was broke. They could see that I haven't showered in a day or two. And so when you start to feel that way, you just feel like the whole world is going on without you and you're on the outside. And so that's the one thing that I strive for today, is to connect people, because I believe you can throw money at things. You can create programs, you can build shelters, you can even change laws. But until you connect a person with the community that's happening around them, you're going to spin your wheels every year and you're going to pretend like you don't understand homelessness.
Right.
I was asked to leave a very famous restaurant downtown that's still there today, because I was basically loitering too long. I'd ordered some food and I was homeless and I was staying in there as long as I could to stay out of the elements. I was asked to leave, and I remember just how gross I felt and how I didn't want to scare anybody. I felt like maybe people thought I was scary because they asked me to leave. And I'd never faced anything like that. And about 6 years later, I raised $250,000 to help keep 180 restaurants afloat during the pandemic. And I dropped off a check to them for $3,000. And they didn't remember me.
Wow.
And it was the same owners. And they didn't remember me, and I didn't remind them.
Yeah.
But I was the same dude. I was the same exact guy. I didn't have addictions. I was just poor and I was not connected. Now I've got hundreds of thousands of followers in Spokane that I'm connected with.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to do things like save that person's restaurant. And so my story to a lot of people is, if you love what I do, because I get a lot of feedback, I love what you do, I love your story. Well, then you have to love that man that's holding that cardboard sign, and you ignore him and you act like you're playing with your radio and you're not. That was me. So if you love me, then you have to love him. You can't love one of us and not the other. And so I'll preach that till I have no breath left in me. I mean, that's just humanity.
Oh,
I mean,
yes. They say you can't measure the heart of a champion by looking at him, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, we see people that, just are, they haven't showered in a while. They're dirty. They're just in a state of despair. And from the outside, they look like lost causes. But what I look for, and just like you, I think, is like, you see the person. You don't know anything about the person, but you see and feel who that person is and what they're capable of becoming. And you just don't know this, the impact you can have by just not ignoring them.
Right.
You don't have to give them anything, but you can treat them with dignity, and you can give them a kind word, if nothing else.
I mean, I've met published authors on the streets. I've met people who were nurses. I've met people who were teachers.
Yeah.
And I tell people we have to connect. So connection can be a 5-minute conversation with somebody, or all the way up here and housing them and everything in between. So, but it's going to take people like us that have our lives in order and we're fairly happy with what's going on. It's going to take us to get out of our comfort zone and connect with those people, because sometimes that's not comfortable. But if we don't do that, we cannot keep pretending like we don't understand why things aren't getting better,
Right. We have to be the catalyst, or otherwise things stay the same. And we have to get out of our own way and our high horses in order to meet someone at their level. Right. I don't care if you live in the mansion at the top of the hill. You are not too good of a person to acknowledge and connect with somebody that might be at a lower place in life, period. As a matter of fact, you're probably in the most powerful position to really create massive change. Yeah. Right. Because to create massive change, it comes with a bill, right. There is money involved. Yeah. But you can start a grassroots movement just like you did, I just love that part of this interview where you went back and you helped keep the restaurant that kicked you out at one point in your life because you were homeless, and you helped keep them in business so they wouldn't be homeless.
And it was the same man, the exact same man that I gave the check to. And he was head over heels in love with me when I gave him the check. And that's fine, because we were going through a really scary time. But man, it really made me think about just how life is and how we just don't give each other the benefit of the doubt. We assume so many things,
Right. I mean, what a blessing and what a triumphant comeback right there. So, Rick, can you tell us about life after dropping out of high school? What did it look like? How did it feel? And what was the catalyst, do you think, that made you throw that Hail Mary pass that ultimately led you to getting on a bus? And I want you to tell the story about who you met on that bus that started you on the path of life that you're on. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, without an education, it was just entry-level position after entry-level position. They weren't the best jobs. I remember I worked for Honey Bucket, cleaning out outhouses, a lot of fast food, a lot of manufacturing jobs that I just couldn't seem to progress at because I didn't have any education. And so I remember I worked a full year at Telect out in the Valley. And for me, that a year was like working 10 years at a place. I mean, that was a big accomplishment for me. And I got a nickel raise after a year, and it just devastated me because I was like, I'm never going to be able to take care of my family on these wages.
Yeah.
So it led to probably 50 jobs from the time I was 20 until the time I was 44, Maybe that's probably a conservative number too, but I think I've worked everywhere in Spokane. I drive around and I'm like, yep, I work there, I work there, I work there.
Right.
And that was my lifestyle. Growing up, I moved a lot, and so I would make friends, and then 6 months later, I'd go to a new school and I'd make new friends, and I 6 months later, I'd go to a new school because we'd get evicted or whatever, and I'd have to move to the South Hill and
Right.
so in my adult life, that's how I was with my jobs. I would meet people, make friends. I was always able to make friends, but then I'd move on, make new friends, and so even at my age today, I'm 51 years old. I don't have lifelong friends. I have friends that have been in my life the last 6 months because that's just the way I've been programmed since I was a little boy.
Right.
And I don't I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is what it is. But yeah, so in 2015, which wasn't that long ago, I'm basically squatting in another trailer in Medical Lake. I owe my landlord like 4 months rent, so I'm avoiding her like crazy, like just
Oh yeah.
I'm not answering
Yeah.
the door. I'm staying gone as long as I can. I don't have a car. I don't have a job. My third marriage was on the rocks. My wife's not even living with me. I mean, it was, as much as I would love to say that was like the worst day I'd ever had, that's what poverty's like. Like
Right.
you have some ups and downs and a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and you just trying to always figure it out. And the thing that was different this day was that I was really frustrated and I was getting older, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to be 50 soon and my life hasn't changed at all. I don't want to be that guy that everybody remembers needed a hand. I mean, there's got to be some purpose for me other than wandering through this life trying to figure out where I'm going to eat my next meal. And so
Right.
I had like $10 on me and I got on the bus and I went into Spokane, and I was going to go to Spokane Community College and see if there's any way that I could register for class. I was terrified. I hadn't opened a book in 30 years.
Right.
It was nothing that I was excited about at all. And so, but what happened really cool was when we got downtown to the plaza where the buses converge, I had about 12 minutes until my next bus left. And so I went upstairs and I was going to buy a snack, and I saw this young homeless man who I'd seen before around town.
Mm-hmm.
He looked about my son's age and he was really filthy dirty. That was the two things that really stood out to me. And I asked him if he was hungry. I approached him. I've never had approached anybody. It was also the first time in my life that I set aside all the stuff that I was dealing with and tried to focus on someone else who was dealing with more than I was, which I didn't think was possible.
Right.
That was a new concept to me, helping people. And he said, yeah, I'm starving. And I said, well, let's go in here. I'll get you whatever you want. And I remember to this day, he bought some Funyuns and a Mountain Dew. That's all he wanted. And we just sat there for the next 8 minutes, and I got to know a complete stranger. I found out that his family, he didn't have any family in town. He was new here. He'd been beat up a lot. He was getting beat up a lot on the streets, and his backpack was robbed from him the night before. And that really bothered me. And I said, you know what? I can't just leave you with some Funyuns and say, well, good luck with all that, So
Right.
I asked him if he could meet me back there on the same, at the same time in a couple of days. I would bring him a backpack with all of the stuff that he lost. And he was like, why would you do that? I remember him just being so surprised that I would even offer that. And I said, just meet me back here. I promise I'll bring you the stuff. And so I went on to Spokane Community College that day, and I took the assessment test, and the lady said I scored really low. And I was like, I figured I would. And she said, but you know what, Rick? People have scored lower. And that was the piece of hope that you wouldn't think that sentence is hope. But that was a flicker that lit something inside of me. Like, wait a minute, I might not be the worst student in the history of education, And so I was on cloud nine. I was like, I'm going to start college. And so I got home and told everybody on Facebook I was starting college. And I said, oh, by the way, I met this man named Jared, and he got robbed of his backpack. Can you guys help me fill a backpack? And the rest is history. I mean, the community helped me fill 25 backpacks in the first 24 hours with
That's crazy.
Everything you could imagine, man, like socks and toiletries and food items and gift cards and tents and sleeping bags and backpacks. It was amazing. And that's how giving backpacks started. And then I'm off and running. I was living in my van the first 6 weeks that I went to SEC.
Wow.
So I was literally doing my homework with a flashlight, and nothing told me I was going to quit. Like, I'd quit everything in my life, but something was telling me I'm going to finish this. And sure enough, I did.
What an interesting way to get a thread of hope. Somebody's giving you some terrible news, right? That you did terrible,
right?
but you didn't do the worst that we've seen.
Right.
And because of that, that was a little ember burning in the grass, right? A little gust of wind came along and sparked a flame, and that's
I tell
so
people, you'll get there's big obvious pieces of hope out there. Like you meet that special
right.
someone,
Yeah.
you land that dream job. But I tell people all the time, you got to keep your eyes open for these little pieces of hope that you would never consider them hope. And that was, I'm sure, I guarantee that woman didn't wake up that day and say, I'm going to change a man's life today with this sentence. I
Yeah.
know they didn't. And so we all
Oh
need to
yeah.
know that the words we say, even though we think they're bland and we've said them a million times, you don't know what those words are going to mean to the right person. And that one hit me.
100%. Like what I get out of that, and you can attest to if like my understanding is correct, is like you're not the lowest person on the planet. When you heard
Right.
that sentence, you're not the worst. We've
That
had
kind of gives
lower
you an idea
scores.
of that gives you an idea of how low I really thought I was. I thought I was the
Right.
dumbest person on the planet. So for me to get hope from that means, wow, I had some work to do on myself.
Right.
Just proving to myself, dude, you are worthy. Not only are you worthy, wait till you see what you do over the next few years.
Yep. You're worthy. You're capable.
Yep.
And you might think you're at the lowest point, but you just know like you're not, and that's just something I think really profound. And I think most people can identify with because we've all felt like we were not qualified, not capable, not smart. We don't deserve opportunities or blessings or even have the right to ask for them.
We're too old. We don't have
Yeah.
time left.
Yeah. I mean, we make so many justifications in our own head to limit ourselves. And here is a man, Rick, that was at the lowest point of his life, took a shot in the dark, got on a bus, met a man, and took a test and was given terrible news, but also great news at the same time. So not everything that glitters is gold, right? So
Absolutely.
but that's what I love about truthful communication is, like you said, the words that you have to share, whether you think they're good or bad, as long as they're honest and coming from a good intended, well-intended place, those could be the seeds that someone needs to actually change their life. So anybody that's out there listening to this story right now, just remember that. Reflect on this story. And as a matter of fact, if you have the opportunity and the capability, rewind that part and listen to it again. And listen to it because there's a message in there for you, but I can't tell you the message that's for you, but it's there. So, Rick, now, what I think, so like, people that come from really adverse backgrounds, like for an example, I came from a really abusive, broken home myself. But I say it like this: the greatest thing that ever happened to me in life was that I was born into a very bad environment. I think it taught me the most about life. And it taught me skills that I can now apply to my life that have helped me tremendously throughout my life. Things like communication skills, reading people, understanding my environment, learning how to control what goes on in my environment, being resourceful, ingenuitive, dumpster diving, so to speak. I did that. And just finding out ways to solve your problems. Now, how would you say that your upbringing from, being born into a broken home with it sounds like maybe some addictions issues in the home, and a father that wasn't there, a mother that did her best, but really wasn't there because she had to go work, right? She had to try to find a way to support these children. Describe how that impacted your life in good ways and in bad ways.
Yeah, I mean, it just set the tone early on that I was different and that it was going to be a long haul. Like I never thought once that I was going to have an easy life. Like some of my friends, that it seemed to me like they were having it easy because their mom and dad loved each other. They were there. They got to go on vacations. All that stuff was a fairy tale to me. So I had to try to figure out how I was going to be able to do that myself. And then it didn't take long to realize, oh, you're not going to be able to do that yourself because you're dumb. You don't know how to build things. You can't work on things with your hands. You don't know the right people. I mean, I was so disconnected. I just wanted to fade away and just I could have lived in a tent forever probably if I would have had a tent, but I didn't even have a tent,
Right. Wow.
But now, and it's interesting when you come from, so staying in Spokane and not leaving, like a lot of people have that hardship and then they leave and they find success.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to have my comeback in the same town that I was born in and struggled in is really interesting because when I drive around, I see so many reminders of the sad times, the hard times, the times where, I waited on a list for a big brother in the Big Brother Big Sister program for 3 or 4 years and never got a big brother, which was just devastating as a kid.
Right.
So not only am I, yearning for my father, he's not going to work, so we'll put you on this list and maybe you'll get another one. Oh, and then you won't get that. And so it was just like, I just felt like I was always set up for failure. And so to be able to go around now and see those places, man, I mean, I'll sometimes just go sit at some of my favorite parks that I used to sit at when I was poor and just sat there to stay out of the way. And now I can go there a different man and I can see things differently. And I'm so appreciative for those hard times and all the people that were in my life because they definitely built who I am today. And I think, like you said, I can now deal with things a lot better. I feel like I've earned my place. So when I get invited to meetings that I would have never been invited to 8 years ago, I feel like I belong there. I walk in there with my head high. I don't feel ashamed to be there. I don't feel like I'm not worthy to be there. I have a story that I can back up why I'm supposed to be there. And so that story comes from just years and years of struggle. I'm just so glad that I survived it because a lot of people leave this earth and they never got to find that light that they were so close to seeing. I mean, I don't know how many people have left this earth just days away from seeing a light that they needed. And so my job now is to spend the rest of my days going out there and just making sure. I say light attracts light a lot. That's my go-to.
Right.
In 3 words, it's the best way to describe everything because when people are doing good, other people want to kind of gather around to see what's going on with that. And then it kind of rubs off on them and then they go out.
Right.
That's all I want to do with the rest of my days. And it comes in lots of different forms, but I'll have work for the rest of my life. I'll never be bored,
Right. Now, let me touch on a couple of things you said. Number one, what I think is beautiful here is that you get to go back to the places that were once filled with despair and hopelessness and just being lost in those parks and those benches. Now you get to go back there thriving, go back to the same place and find happiness and joy in the places that used to be the pit of hell, right? For you at that point in your life. And then also, like what a mission, right? To help people be that light, inspire people to, before they, might make some drastic choices to maybe take themselves off the earth, right? Earlier than expected. Because I mean, one thing I believe in my heart of hearts is if you're still living, breathing, and walking on this earth, you are here to fulfill a massively big purpose that was bestowed for you, right? And through your experiences, right? And you're a testament to that, right? You're helping the people that used to be you.
Yeah.
They're just the other version of you.
Yep.
So, remember that, folks. It's like, keep going. You might feel like there's no hope and there's no light, but there is a light and you are the hope for someone else. You just have to find it within yourself. So
I remember times being so low, like times living in a trailer with no electricity and mice and thinking and seeing people talk like me and you right now, like hearing people. We didn't have podcasts back then, but I remember hearing positive stories of people that turned their life around. And I was like, that's really cool that happened to you. That's really awesome. But I couldn't even relate to it because I was so far down. And so a lot of times when I talk to people, I don't want them, I feel bad because I'm coming to them with all this happy joy in my life now, but they're where I was, where they didn't even want to wake up every day. And so but I want people to know that as quickly as it turns bad, it also can turn good that quick. And so you may feel like there's no hope in sight, but I felt that way. I felt like there was times I was going to owe so much child support, for example. I got like $22,000 behind in child support. And I thought I would never be able to live on my own. I'd have to live with friends and couch surf. And then I was able to pay that off and actually live on my own and stuff like that. So like, but it just took a couple things really quick that happened in my life to turn things around. And so I want people to know that it's not going to be, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a 10-year struggle to get back on your feet. Like you just got to keep your eyes open and your heart open and be looking for those things that come around because I believe, God puts things out there for us to kind of learn from, but he also gives us gifts, which is, hey, here's an opportunity, go take advantage of it. So I don't know if that makes sense or not. It's just, it
absolutely does.
Hard to tell people hey, tomorrow's a better day. There's such thing as toxic positivity, and my wife talks about it a lot. And it's a real thing. Like you can be so positive that you just annoy the hell out of everybody, you know. And I try
Right.
not to do that, but it's hard for me because my life is just so much different than it ever was that it's hard for me not to be joyful.
Yeah.
But I also realize that doesn't happen overnight, you know.
It doesn't happen overnight. It took a lot of pain to get to where you are now. And I mean, let's be truthful here. Even today, all of us that quote unquote have it together by societal standards, they're doing positive. We have, good jobs, we have roofs over our head, we can financially support ourselves and things like that. We still struggle with the feelings of worthiness. So many struggles that so many people deal with just mentally, right? Of being qualified, feeling qualified, especially people that come from some dark places. They're still fighting some limiting beliefs and things like that so many times, so I know I do from time to time, and it's very rare for me because I'm just like you, man. I'm so blessed. I'm blessed beyond anything that I ever thought I would have, on the associations that I have, the experiences I get to have, the ability to be a father to my daughter, the father that I never had,
Right.
things like that. And so it's like, it's okay to feel those moments of, despair or wondering if you're qualified or if you're worthy and things like that. But what you cannot do is let that become part of your identity. Right. How
Right.
would you, what was a tip that you'd give someone when they're kind of feeling down or feeling unworthy or unqualified? Maybe someone that's kind of digging themselves out of the pit that you used to be in. What is a tip or a thought or something that you would give to them that they can use as a resource to keep going in their lowest days?
Without trying to sound too cliche, I mean, don't give up. I mean, all those things are, pretty obvious, but my big one is just keeping that hope alive. And I know I'll always go back to hope. Hope and connection are my two favorite words, just because that's what saved my life. And so, getting yourself connected. When I went to Spokane Community College, I made sure that I joined every club that I could join, every study group. A lot of people didn't do that because they just wanted to get in, get their grades, and get out. But I knew that if I connected myself with people, that I would need to come back the next day, or else I would let them down, if that makes sense. And so,
Yeah.
I wanted to connect myself, and that got me through school. And every quarter I'd see friends drop out that I had the last quarter, and they're not there anymore. And it's because they didn't connect. And then when they had those tough times, they just said, I'm out, peace out. And there's times where I wanted to quit, but I had a group of people around me saying, dude, you've worked too hard for this. Like, and those people were sometimes teachers and professors, So that connection piece, I would definitely tell someone to get connected. I don't care how you have to, if you have to join a gym, if you have to join a group, whatever you got to do to stay connected with people, do not isolate. And then also just be aware of how much hope is out there in the world that you're not even accepting as hope right now. And pretty soon your mind will start to train itself to look for those things. And then before you know it, instead of turning on the news and listening to all the bad stuff, you've already got yourself 10 or 12 good things that have happened that you can kind of recover from all of the bad news that hits us day in and day out,
Yeah. What a great tip. I mean, human connection is so important to our overall well-being, right? Like just mentally, spiritually, physically, and soulfully, and in every way. Yeah. Right. To feel connection, to feel love, to feel like you have somebody in your corner, to be in someone else's corner. Right. It's like you built an army of accountability partners that probably didn't even really know that's what they were.
Oh, yeah. And now
they were your reason.
Yeah. Now teachers I've stayed in contact with that are not like good friends of mine now. But I tell people, when you see a homeless person out there and they're urinating right in front of traffic and are doing whatever those bad things are that just drive people nuts, you have to understand that they don't like themselves. So they surely don't care what you think. So you have to realize that the reason they're doing that is they've given up on everything. And until you've seen that look in their eyes that there's nothing, you can't really talk about how they should feel or what they should be going through. When you're desperately alone, you don't care about littering or starting a fire. You don't even care about, like I said, going to the bathroom out in front of people. We got to give people a purpose so that they do like themselves, so that they want to wake up and do the best they can. But when we just keep them at an arm's length because they are weird or they look like they might be scary, okay, that's fine, but don't act like you don't understand why this problem gets bigger and bigger every year. I mean, I've been giving backpacks for 8 years, and homelessness has increased every year since I started that program. So we're no longer giving out backpacks. We've given out so many backpacks that everybody has 2 or 3 backpacks. So now we're swimming upstream, and we're spending a lot of money keeping people housed who are on the verge of becoming homeless, because once you become homeless, it's so expensive to get housed again. And so we're kind of shifting gears right now. We're in the middle of doing a whole bunch of really good stuff. But the backpacks definitely served their purpose and helped open up that line of communication. And it's been a wonderful thing, you know.
Let's get into a couple statistics on that, and then we're going to share with people where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you, how they can donate with you, how they can join you in community services. But let's just kind of recap that part. So you started giving backpacks back in about 2015. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And since then, he's given over 7,000 backpacks out. Is that an accurate number?
Yep.
Now you're transitioning, and you are not just giving backpacks of hope. You're giving shelter. You're giving roofs. You're giving a better opportunity out of the elements where people can actually have the opportunity to thrive instead of just survive. I believe that, you know, if you take some of these things off their table of where they're going to get food, where they're going to rest their head that night, you know, are they going to have to sleep with one eye open and worried about their backpack getting robbed? Are they going to have to worry about somebody cutting up on the side of their tent or doing all kinds of whatever out there in the raw environment? That now you free up people's capacity to do stuff that can serve them instead of just survive. So, like, how many people have you housed in with a roof over their head to date?
So we just started our community provider fund in January. So it's only April. It just so only months. In a few months.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be like knock your socks off number, but 25 people have stayed in the homes that they were getting ready to lose since January. So it's definitely a dent. We're getting more and more support from the community because of these statistics. So we're hoping by the end of the year we'll have this massive number of people that we've been able to, and we don't just try to keep them housed, we try to make sure they're sustainable too. So we don't just get them caught up and then say good luck. We want to make sure that, are you able to keep that going? And so it takes a lot of work, and my wife created that whole program, so I'm super proud of her, and it's my job to get out there and market it and promote it and tell people how good it is, because 100% of it's going towards helping people. It's not an 80% or 70%, you know. Every dollar that we make, every dollar we earn from that program goes right back into helping people stay housed. So 25 people in a couple months is pretty good, and we're going to just keep climbing that number, you know, just keep on helping people.
Let's put that number into perspective, because, you know, to you, Rick, it sounds like a small number maybe, but you did 25 people, gave them homes or kept them in homes in less than 5 months. So that's about 4 1/4, if you want to get real technical, but 4 to 5 people per month, which is 1 to 2 a week, got to stay in their homes and keep thriving and working towards overcoming their struggles. So you might think that sounds like a small number, but that's a massively big number for something that just started, and it's created a massively big impact, not in just, you know, keeping houses out of foreclosure and things like that, maybe, but it made a massive impact, most importantly, in the people's lives that were on their way to where you used to be.
And I get messages now from people saying, hey, Rick, my family and I are homeless for the first time starting tomorrow, and we don't know where to park our car.
Right.
Can you tell me a safe place to park our car? And that's just the most devastating email. I mean, from a father, him and his wife and 2 kids are going to go sleep in their car for the first time. Like, we got to do better, man. We got to do better.
Right. We got to do better. You know, we're here to serve humanity as human beings.
Yeah.
Right. And whatever capacity that is for you is for you. Some people it's saving the rainforest. Some people it's cleaning the ocean. Some people it's saving kittens. You know, people like you and me, it's saving people, man. I'm going to tell you right now, you are a modern day prophet, so to speak. Right. So here you are out here changing lives of the people that used to be in the same position as you. I just got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you give credit to as far as you being able to accomplish what you've accomplished and graduate with honors from Spokane Community College and also earn your bachelor's from Gonzaga University? What would you say was the biggest catalyst that set you on that path and kept you on that path?
So I'm going to say in one word, community, and I'm going to explain why that is. The day that I met Jared and was basically squatting in a trailer, I had about 300 Facebook friends, and they were all kind of people from grade school that I used to go to junior high with. It wasn't current friends. Well, now I have over 100,000 followers because from that day, my story's been out online to share. And so people, they were really excited about Jared, helping Jared. And then they were really excited that I was in school. So they followed my journey. And then they were like, oh my God, not only did he graduate community college, now he's going to Gonzaga. Is he going to, can we watch him graduate from Gonzaga? And I did that. And then Mike Rowe came and paid off my tuition at Gonzaga, and that exploded nationally. And people just kept going in on the story. And that's what kept me going, because there was days I wanted to quit, but I was like, man, I'm gonna have to let down thousands of people who have been watching this journey.
Right.
And so it's pretty intense to talk about it like that. Like, social media gets a bad rap for a lot of good reasons. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff that happens, but social media also changed my life. And if you use it correctly, it can change the world in a great way. And so that's definitely what just kept at me, as that catalyst that you talk about. I just didn't want to let anybody down, and I loved sharing my story. I was just as excited as everybody else was that I graduated from here and I'm going to here. It's all authentic, because what you see is what you get. You're going through it with me for the first time. I didn't pre-script this. This wasn't anything that was already laid out.
Right.
People ask me all the time, like, how do you find time to sleep? And I said, I had 44 years to rest up for this. I'm absolutely ready to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude, that's it.
Oh man. So I mean, there's proof, everybody out there listening. Like, your story is your power. And your story is the reason why someone else is gonna keep going. Your story is absolutely worth someone else being inspired by, because it will inspire people. Regardless of where you're from in life, what you've experienced, your story is your superpower. You need to share with the world, and you get to write your own story. So what an awesome thing. Now, one last question, then I want to share where they can find you. So this is my favorite question. It's the one that catches you off guard, that you probably didn't anticipate.
All right.
What does it mean in your eyes to be a resilient underdog?
What does it mean?
Yeah.
In my eyes, to be a resilient underdog? It means that you had the potential all along. It means that those days that you thought you were nothing, you were actually everything. I'm often drawn back to my childhood self, and I think about that little boy all the time, because I really didn't think I was anything. And I wish I could go back there and be like, man, you have no idea what's inside of you. And I think that we all would be almost scared if we knew how much potential we have. That's how much potential we have. And so I just think that it means that it's always been there, and it's just now coming out. That's my favorite way to think about the underdog. I'm a huge advocate for the underdog, and I can spot them a mile away because I know what that feels like. And I race to them every chance I get, because I want to just remind them that you might be surprised that these things are happening, but you know what? You've had that in you the whole time.
Right. And I'm proud to say this, Rick, you are a resilient underdog.
Thanks, man.
And I think that this interview has proven that fact very well to, whoever might listen to it, be inspired by it, and be able to improve or change their lives, or help someone else change their life with it. But thank you so much for your time. But one thing we need to do and must do is let people know where they can find you, how they can support you, how they can follow your journey, how they can get involved with you. So, like, where do you want people to go in order to find you?
So we've got a website. It's GB Packs. So it's giving back packs, gbpacks.org. And you can donate money there. You can request to have me come speak to your group if you want. You can kind of see all of the different things that we've done. We post what we've done on there. Facebook is our biggest way that we get the word out. So Spokane Quarantine, it's 2 words, Quarantine, TEAM, is a group that we started during the pandemic, and that's also part of our nonprofit. If you just need a dose of positivity, go to that page. We're not asking for money. We're not asking for anything from you. It's just a safe place to see some amazing things that are happening every day in our town. We're just kind of trying to balance the bad that we get with all of the good that we see. And so those 2 are the only really places to get a hold of me, really.
Awesome. Well, hey, that's great information. Now people can go support you. And I encourage you, everybody who's listening to this, if you have anything to share that you can bless this man's efforts with, please do so. It doesn't matter if it's a penny or millions of dollars. I mean, he'll accept and appreciate it all. And if you are just looking for something to hold on to that's positive, go follow that Facebook page, Spokane Quarantine. I'm on it. I've seen it, and it is a beautiful place to be. If you're looking for reasons to find positivity in your despair, or if you're looking for reasons to just admire positivity so you can help keep the perspective of the world what you want it to be, then that's a great place. So I encourage you all to go follow and support this man and his great efforts. And what a great story of the resilient underdog. I can't wait for people to share their feedback and comments. Oh, and by the way, go like the podcast, share the podcast. It's going to be up on all the major platforms. So stay tuned when that comes out, because I will be alerting people. And, come join the Resilient Dog Army, where we adapt, overcome, and win. Have a good day, folks. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Refused to give up despite the odds stacked against them. Resilient Underdog Podcast.